Right hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Quorum is present.
All right. I want to make an announcement before we have public comment. The special meeting convened for tomorrow at 7 p.m. is canceled. There's some more administrative work to be done in relation to that close to the item. Any persons wishing to address the City Council on any item on today's agenda other than closed session may do so at this time.
Good evening, Dan Mellison. I'd like to address the council concerning DR-2, the Forum LLC agreement concerning the parking and off-site locations and the reimbursement. I am not fully informed, but I believe there's an $18 million loan waiting for approval, and part of that loan involves a reimbursement process, and I would like to see this reimbursement run along the same lines as that loan did. Another thing that I would like to see that doesn't seem to be mentioned here is concerning the lease agreement. There seems to be zero stipulation as to the quality of the parking structure that would be put up, or excuse me, not necessarily structure, I believe that'd be a proper term. I am presuming that obviously every law would be involved concerning lighting, safety, security, etc. Concerning this matter. I would like to express my support overall for the procedure of the Forum MSG agreements and the refurbishing of the building. I believe it's a great asset to the city. One concern I do have also is obviously something that's been under great discussion, which is the transportation of people going to the front and from the venue to the remote, shall we say, or parking lot that is under discussion here. I am not quite sure concerning the transportation department and the city of Inglewood's requirements, if it would be a better financial arrangement for the citizens to have a allocated lane for said transportation and of people, or maybe by eminent domain absorb property that would create its own specific corridor along the, I believe, eastern side of the racetrack and Walmart property. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And for the future speakers, DR2 is pulled as well.
DR2 is...
DR2 is pulled.
Okay.
Gil Matthew, District 4 Mayor and City Council. First on the neighborhood conservation program, I think it should be extended as much as possible because that's an excellent program and it benefits the residents and it helps the city. That's item 3. DR01 should be referred to the Park and Recreation Commission for further study, and I would urge you to place a hold on it because Vincent Park is a regional park, and there's BB funds available from the county. So it should be basically tabled and put on hold for further study until you can get all of the funding in place. DR2 is full?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Other than that, I think, again, in payment of the bills, we need a policy in place, and I think it should be reviewed, and a policy should be in place where you can extrapolate at least 20 or 30 items at random and look for documentation. And in that way, at least you'll have some checks and balances. And there's no need to go through item by item, but at random you can extrapolate 20, 30. And there are programs, and I'm sure ITC can give you a program that would facilitate that.
You're suggesting a random audit.
Beg pardon?
You're suggesting a random audit.
It's just for oversight. You know, for instance, you have the vendors, you have the dates, and you have the check numbers. So you just would select them at random, tell the department you want documentation, and who's signing off on it, and make sure that anyone signing off on an invoice, that if in fact it turns out to be fraud, they would be summarily discharged with no questions asked.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. My name is Stuart Bailey, and I'm here to speak on DR1. This is an old thing since our other mayor has left, that we have been trying to get done at Vincent Park for the artificial fields, for the football fields. As Mr. Agee will tell you, we have tried for years to get this done. You don't have the proper funding, so what I would just say is put it on hold. It may be on hold forever, but because nothing will ever really get done, and the kids will suffer that would like to have a home field at Vincent Park. But this is business as usual. You're not going to speed track it or anything like that. You do have to find the right funding so that the people that want to use these fields don't have to pay, because the ones that want to use it are economically not able to pay. So, yeah, we're going to put this on hold. You know, and I'm not happy about it, but it is the right thing to do, because, like I said, with the economic times that we're in, we can't afford to have people that want their kids to play at this park, but they have to pay. You know, play football or soccer should be a fundamental thing, because kids need exercise so that they don't have diabetic problems or health problems. But we're not willing to help these children and understand that this is something that, as a body, we should do. Some way, we got to find a way to get this done. But it's not, so let's hold it and let's get it done. I know Willie Agee's not going to be happy, because, like I said, this is something that he wanted and promised to him by our former mayor. But since we can't, this is what we have to do. Thank you, and have a good evening.
My name is Willie Agee, and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood. And I speak for myself. I want to speak on DR1. This is my motion. I would like to see there's two fields at Centinela Park. One's a football field, the other one's a soccer field. The soccer field would be the field closest to Florence Avenue. I would like to see the city use CDGB funds to complete the soccer field with artificial turf. The other field, I would like to see I would like to see that placed on hold until the city is able to refurbish it with not artificial turf, but just regular turf. I know for a fact that Inglewood Little League football needed a place to play in the city. And Inglewood Blackhawks, I know for a fact, would like to have a field in the city of Inglewood. But they can't play that if we use CDGB funds. So I don't see why the city can't afford to put in a semi-pro field there so that we can maybe get the Blackhawks and Inglewood Little League football players here in this city to represent this city. That's what I would like to see. I'd like to see this approved. C, B, and C. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, and staff, making comments on DR1. Basically, my comments are the same as they have been for some years now. Two of the factors that we least population, pardon me, that we least affect are our seniors and our kids. And it's without a doubt, we're the only city around here that don't have a home field for our amateur sports, our Little League football. Soccer, we do have fields, but there's so many people that abuse our land, and the soccer players, basically they're renegade soccer players, that they come in, the grown adults, and use the fields without permission, and they travel and just park, and they take over the field and run everybody else away from it, and then they destroy it with grown men running around with the soccer shoes on, which destroys your normal football field, or grass that would provide for your normal football field. We need artificial turf on that field. You can't put it down there and expect these people to stay away, because they won't. And you need to protect it for football. If it's what it's for, then that's what needs to be played on it, and you need to preserve the right for the football teams and players to play on it. You can't put soccer people on a football field. So you can't put regular grass down there. It won't work. It never has worked. Anybody around here can tell you that does that. They tell you it won't work. You can put different types of artificial turf down on the soccer field and that on the football field. But you definitely need some type of, and a better type of artificial turf on the football field, because it has to stand up and is softer on the knees and feet and ankles of the kids that are going to be playing on it. But we definitely need to have something to facilitate our youngsters, many of which leave this area, go on to high school and college and the pros. We've got a number of pro players that claim Inglewood as their hometown, and we need to be a part of that. We would see residuals coming back if we did. So GR2, I'm saying that we need to put, whatever the case may be, I know we might have tight for money, whatever the case may be right now, if it takes time to wait for the money, we need to do that, because just putting something down, they will only destroy the field even further, and we don't need that. We need to preserve the field, do the football thing with it, and let's serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, with regard to the Centinela Park fields, and yes, I will call that name, because the women who saved that park included Margaret Miller, Virginia Robinson, Ann Butcher, and Lillian Sembrano. The last one was the one insulted by the council member of District 4 last week, suggesting she did not know what she signed. Now, I personally believe that park should have been named for those women rather than someone who had nothing to do with saving it. But as we get to tonight's decision, I am very offended that using language that would suggest that if we use 100% CBDG funds, then only individuals from the city's low, moderate income benefit area may use the fields, and individuals utilizing the fields would be required to provide proof of income by completing an income self-certification form, including 2 consecutive pay stubs. Copies of bank statements are required. What an incredible insult. No one on the planet should ever suggest that that ever be required in a regional park, or particularly of children. To utilize the parks, that's precisely why we have so many gang issues we have today, is that nobody cares about children. We're all about proven income. And for some of you who are in the $100,000 retirement club, dollars may not mean a lot, but to those of us who aren't benefiting from public income, we've worked to create a community, and that's the difference. The people of old came to this community, donated their lives, their fortunes, and their times to build community, not to lord it over another. And anyone suggesting that children be penalized because of their parents' income should not be serving in any public position.
Mayor, Council, and to the residents of the city of Inglewood. Last night, I happened to have been over to the Westchester YMCA, and as I was there, I watched the families and the people. Some of them even used to be here at the YMCA, and it brought to me this thought with regard to warrants. A year ago, better now, we had monies that were given to some entity called the Clippers Basketball Fund, some $14,000. It's my knowledge that $12,000 of that money had been paid back, but we're still looking for the other $2,000. But, you know, more than that, you know, where are those children? Where are those uniforms? You know, when we had the young Lakers here that are over to Westchester with their families having fun, you know, in a YMCA, which we do not have here anymore, it's really just a shame that, you know, we have nothing for the youth here. And with that property that you're talking about, even the field over here, at the park, redoing that, however you have done it, you were supposed to do it some time ago, and I guess those funds were lost with the other redevelopment funds that you had to give back to the state. Now you're talking about this DR2 thing tomorrow, which you've pulled, but it has to do with properties that we maybe own, maybe we don't own. But at one time, those properties on Prairie and 102nd were given to the Metropolitan YMCA for a YMCA until they were pulled. And at that time, I guess it was supposed to be for some building project that hasn't happened here. It just seems to me as a resident here that you them talk about the stuff with the children and stuff, but you don't walk the walk, you know. It's really a shame. And when you go around to other cities and see all the involvement and entertainment for the young, and you come into this city and we have nothing, and you them sit up there with all these monies that you make, you know, and you give this city nothing. I think it's a shame. I think it's a real shame.
Mr. Mayor and council people, my name is Jose Palomares. I've been a resident in Inglewood for the last 25 years. I run a soccer organization in different areas. I help the Watts area, city of Santa Monica, different areas where we've been able to develop and help community and cities develop soccer fields. I think the project here for D1, I think the fields should be built for the community, for the kids, to create a good environment so we could bring different cultures together. I would like to offer my assistance. I do have a lot of influence with Adidas, Nike, other companies that are willing to support and fund programs like this, so that if the city needs some kind of support to continue building fields for our kids to be able to play, we could have them. My sons play professional in Germany. We have excellent athletes and great academic kids in this area that need this kind of support. Second of all, I think it's it's a way that we could bring different cultures together, having a football and a soccer field together and showing people that we could work together to accomplish a goal, is bringing the community and keeping these kids out of trouble, which is the main goal. I just recently had a kid named Jose Villarreal that is the city of Inglewood, and he's signed for the Galaxy professional soccer team. And there's 3 or 4 more kids like that are willing to come back and help in the community and be part of it. So I just wanted to be able to extend my services and be able to help in any way that we can keep this project going so it could be developed. And if the funds only are for one, then let's try to bring all the resources together so we could develop both fields. Thank you for your time.
Excuse me, Mayor, could we have staff get this gentleman's contact information, please?
Sarge, could you get his name and phone number? Close public comment. Item 1, CSA 2 and H1.
Warrant register, allow for payment of the bills.
I so move.
Second, Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens,
No.
Dunlap. No. Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Consent calendar, items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Move items through to 8.
Pull item 5 and 8.
Madam City, I second
I didn't hear which item you
I'd
wanted.
like to pull 5 and 8,
pulling
Mrs.
5
Horton.
and 8.
5 and 8,
And-
okay.
And we're having a vote, I second on 2, 3, 6, and 7.
Council members Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap. Aye. Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Item 5.
Staff report recommending approval of amendment number 1 to agreement number 11-144 with the James A. Dougal for services related to obtaining 2 additional civil gang injunctions on behalf of the city of Inglewood.
Move items 1 through 3.
Second, Chief Fronterada.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens. This measure is an amendment to a previous contract agreement with a council to work on a extension of a gang injunction in the city here. And this will enable us to further enhance this gang injunction to add some additional gang components as an effective tool to deal with gang violence.
All right. Does this add to the number of gangs or to the number of individuals in an individual gang that are served?
I'm sorry,
This addition, is it for additional gangs to be served or for additional members of a single gang to be served?
it's for 2 additional gangs.
All right. Councilman Stevens.
Okay. Chief, congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say for the audience, during the chief's interim as chief of police, we saw a drop in the number of murders here in the city of Inglewood. Data, especially excluding that terrible tragedy that happened off of Inglewood Avenue, we were somewhere in the teens in last year, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, and usually it was in the high 20s. My concern with this is that when we're talking about a gang injunction, I'm concerned that, well, how many gang injunctions, Chief, have we had so far?
We've had one previous.
We have
gang
had
injunction.
one previous.
Yes.
And I must say, First District has been relatively safe, other than a few break-ins here and there.
And we're working on those certainly.
Okay,
to
we're
combat.
working on those. But my concern is that when we're dealing with gang injunctions, I'm finding that, well, it's described for the public just exactly. A gang injunction is a group of individuals who congregate or they come together. They could pretty much be classified as a gang. And my concern, Chief, is that in the course of doing so, we may be disqualifying Inglewood youth, some of them innocent, just simply having bad selection of friends, from actually being able to seek gainful employment because they get swept up and they get placed into what's called the system. So then they are not able to apply for employment. I commend you on straightening up, especially my Queen Street Park. I commend you on that, and the officers involved in that. But I personally feel at this point in time, the gangs are pretty much on the run at this point. I'm concerned that with this action that we would take here, it says 2 additional civil gang injunctions on behalf of the city of Inglewood. I'm just concerned as to at what point do we consider the city of Inglewood to be safe? It's because it states, as it states clearly, it says on the in the staff report, page 2 of 2, it states very clearly in the first paragraph, it says an overall reduction in gang activity and gang-related crime. In some rare cases, the injunction has completely eliminated the issue, meaning that the gang injunction is not necessarily how we, in my opinion, that we can actually solve the problem. My personal belief is that more black and white units being visible on the street is what protects us. When I have black and white patrol cars, I feel very secure. I feel that that's how we, in my opinion, that we can actually make a solid impact, and you have. I just would like to say that at this point in time, the good job that you have done, I feel that if we were to continue to go down this road of gang injunction, then what happens is we start getting into the realm of that we could actually get into a situation, I feel, of stereotyping. Group of individuals standing on a corner, automatically, they're up to no good. I myself have to watch myself as far as that is concerned. I'm a bit paranoid. Everybody knows that. But the bottom line is that I'm just concerned that with the results that we're looking for may not actually outweigh the damage that we could cause to innocent people. You follow me? And I want my officers to understand, I support you totally. And I know you have a very difficult job out there, without a doubt. I know you do. But we live in a minority, cosmopolitan community, Inglewood is. We have all ethnicities, all people, all types, everyone. And what I'm finding in trying to help young people find jobs is that many of them, maybe in their early teens, have made bad choices. And now they're in the system. And I'm concerned that this actually could place others into the system and then take away their options of even becoming a police officer or getting a federal job. And that's what I'm concerned about. Could you just briefly describe what a gang injunction is specifically and how it affects those individuals who are rounded up by the U.S. Marshals or whoever it is, our police department, whoever? Just what is it exactly?
Well, first of all, essentially, it's a civil injunction, so or a gang injunction. There are many safeguards that are put into this injunction to ensure that citizens, proper citizens, don't fall into the kind of the category that you described. You have to be, there's systems, data systems that you would have to be entered into, and there's certain criteria that you have to meet for that. It's not and I don't mean to suggest that you were saying this, it's not a witch hunt. We're not an occupying force here. One thing that I really emphasize with officers is certainly that we are an empathetic and compassionate police force in this community, and we work with the community to ensure for its safety. Gangs and gang members who have been identified under the proper methods and tools of the trade, so to speak, that we use, we know they're gangs because most of them, 90+% of them, admit that they're a gang member. And so those are the type of individuals, either by they're admitting that they are a gang member or the crimes that they commit against law-abiding citizens. A lot of them burglaries and those kinds of things, and more serious crimes are entered into the system, and then we have safeguards built in here. Certainly anybody who's going to say to the Chuco Justice Center, for example, which I've personally spoken with those individuals. It's not our intention to, in fact, any young person in the community who wants to find a different way in life, I will drive them personally to the Chuco Center, and I have done that. So I will ensure that our officers, apply this appropriately, and we're not looking to bootstrap anybody who doesn't belong into this system. In fact, I wish we didn't even have to do this, to be quite honest with you. But unfortunately, gang crime is something that we have to deal with in this community, at least for now. But many of the methods that we can to prevent youth from going into this wrong way of life, I'm all for that and support that.
Okay. Thank you.
That's questions.
Councilman Dunlap.
Yes, we have a gang injunction against how many gangs? This was for 2 additional. We have some others that are in place as well?
Yes, we have 2 now.
No, this is for 2.
2
We
additional.
have others
Yes.
carry over. So then how many do we have total?
This 2 would make 4 total.
So we have 4 total.
Gangs that we
Right.
would have in the, yes.
And this is for the city limits of the city of Inglewood or specific areas?
This would be citywide because these gangs cover the entire city, so it would make a city a safe zone.
The entire city.
Correct.
How many identified gang members do we have living in the city of Inglewood?
Approximately 4,500.
4,500. Actually, that figure is less than half of what I was told at another time. Maybe things have changed, but the last figure I got from the department was 10,000. 10,000 identified gang members living in the city of Inglewood. Pretty scary. Just the numbers alone. 4,500 scary as well. But I support the gang injunction, and considering the fact that I've had homicides practically on my doorstep, gang-related. I mean, however many gangs we have, as far as I'm concerned, you can have, if we have 20 identified gangs here, we can have an injunction against all of them. Because it makes it difficult for people to, especially with teenage children, I mean, for their kids to be out on the street. Many of our families, if they have specifically teenage boys or boys in the early 20s, they want them to stay in the house. They want to keep them home. It's like they don't feel like they have the freedom to be a young person or a young adult because of the gangs out there. Many of these homicides that take place on the streets, they're not always, and oftentimes they're not gang against other gang. They're gang against innocent people. Who are just innocent victims that occur. So I'm all for gang injunctions. I don't see a downside to it at all. And I want the gangs out of this city completely. I'll be very happy when we have surveillance cameras in those neighborhoods where the people want them. And I do think it needs to be where the residents want them. I'll be very happy when that takes place so that the perpetrators of the crimes will be apprehended. Right now, we have home invasion robberies where people just walk away and get away. We have homicides where people just get away. We only have so many police officers, and until we get surveillance cameras in those neighborhoods where people want them, remember, some communities, some neighbors don't want them, and that's fine. That should be the choice that they have. But I believe that anybody that's in our city committing crimes, I want them apprehended. And that's why I've always been a big supporter, Chief, of having very high rewards, as much as $50,000. First off, we've never paid any out. And secondly, it's much more cost-effective than police officers' salaries working on cases. $50,000, because if you have a reward, $50,000 for someone who's been the perpetrator of a homicide, and somebody gives information leading to their arrest,
then their life becomes at risk. I mean, we do live in the real world, right? When they give evidence, they could be in jeopardy, and $50,000 would allow a young family to relocate. And I think that we need to do that because that protects them. And so whatever we can do, I appreciate this gang injunction, and whatever funds we have that would bring more of these for other gangs, I'm all for them, and you have my support 100%. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, I wanted you go a little bit more in detail because, you know, I'm very pleased with the implementation. You know that when I came back to the city that this was something that I was really, really interested in. The reality is that first, this is not something the department makes a decision on, one, whether a gang is enjoined, or two, whether or not individual gang members are enjoined. First, the department has to set a predicate, establish a case that a certain gang is a criminal enterprise. They have to prove that to the courts. Isn't that true?
That's correct.
And then they can't just classify, the department doesn't have the ability to classify individuals as members of that criminal street gang. They have to, one, build a packet, two, serve the individual, have them come to court where they get a chance to defend themselves from becoming enjoined. And then and only then, when a judge reviews, one, the predicate for classifying a gang as a criminal enterprise, and two, classifies the court makes a decision that this individual is part of that criminal enterprise, then and only then are they enjoined. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
So we don't have a case where a police officer could go up on a corner and say, you belong to the Crips, and now you're enjoined. There are so many safeguards. And that's why we have to contract out with an attorney. This attorney is a city attorney from Los Angeles who's done this many times. Is that correct?
Yes, he's very experienced in this area.
So I'm going to tell you that this was something that I insisted on, and this has had a dramatic impact on both violent crime and homicides in our city, and I support you, and I thank you for the good work you've done as the interim and the job we expect you to do in the future.
Thank you.
Council, Madam City Clerk, motion.
Yes, we have a motion. Council members Stevens,
No.
Dunlap,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Item 8.
Staff report
We're
recommending
pulling item
award
8.
contract for
We're
the
pulling
trans-
item 8.
Item 8 is pulled. I'm sorry. We're pulling item 8. We're pulling item 8.
Oh,
It was pulled off
We
the
did announce
agenda.
that. DR1.
staff report recommending direction be given to staff after considering the following 3 options as it pertains to the Community Development Block Grant funds for the installation of artificial turf at Ed Vinson Park.
I'd like to move approval to A, but I want a staff report before I do my comments. Actually, I'm going to modify the language on A.
Wait a minute. So then you're not moving approval on that?
Well, I want an explanation of what's considered eligible, and then I'm going to,
Okay, well,
I want to move that we renovate both fields, but I want details, and then I may alter I might amend it. Thank you.
Why don't we just have the staff report and then have the motions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. The staff report before you asks that you provide direction to staff concerning the use of CDBG funds for 2 fields at Edward Vinson Park where we want to install artificial turf. The options that we're asking you to consider are renovating both fields using all CDBG funding, or renovating one field, utilizing CDBG funding and letting the other one sit on hold until we can find alternate funding, or placing the entire project on hold until we can find funding that doesn't have the same use requirements as CDBG funding. As you know, Vinson Park is a 55-acre park with various amenities. It includes 2 soccer fields that I'll refer to as multi-purpose fields from now on. Plans are underway to rehabilitate those fields. To date, we've actually completed the design work for the project we were trying to move forward. Prior to that, in June of 2009 and 2010, the mayor and council allocated about $1.2 million towards the installation of turf. Later in April of 2011, additional funding in the amount of $700,000 was awarded to bring the total to right at $1.9 million to rehabilitate both fields. That includes the installation of artificial turf on 2 fields and a retaining wall. With those funds in place, we contracted to have the design work completed, and it was completed in December of 2011. In December of 2011, about the same time, we had a visit from the HUD department, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. A representative came down and wanted to make sure that our project met the eligibility requirements for HUD funding. Prior to that, we had been operating off of the guise that this project fell in a CDBG area and that it was an eligible project. But after speaking with the representative, she further told us that there were some other requirements that we had to meet. Her bottom line, or HUD's bottom line, is that anyone that would use the field, if it's paid for with CDBG money, has to fall within the low to moderate income, and there are certain income brackets that you must meet. Those are not rules that we're making up. They come from HUD. They are also applicable to other programs that we have in place, such as programs we do in the summer. We also have to do the same type of paperwork. With that, when the HUD representative came, they asked us to hold our project until we could respond to several inquiries or questions that they had. We've been going back and forth over the course of several months, now about a year, trying to satisfy HUD's bottom line. Now it comes down to, I believe, a policy or a council decision. It's not a decision staff could make to determine how much of CDBG funding, if any, that we use, knowing that if we use it all, there's certain eligibility requirements. If we use only a portion, then the city has to come up with the remaining portion through some source of funding. If you elect to renovate both fields, the funding is available in the amount of $1.8 million. Should you elect to do that, anyone that uses the field will need to provide proof of income and meet the income requirements that are outlined in the table here. It speaks to how much a household can make based on the family size. If you renovate just one field, the similar requirements are in place for that same field. The second field will lie on hold until we can find the funding, or you can elect to not renovate either field, and then the funding would then be available for other projects. That concludes my report.
All right,
Do you have a motion?
I'm going to comment first. This individual who advised you that every child, every adult who goes to a regional park, of which there's no park personnel working, has to provide check stubs, IRS statements. It's so absurd. I hope they're not working for the government anymore, because it's an embarrassment. I mean, I'm looking at people's faces in the audience when they hear the requirements. This is ridiculous. This is a regional park. As you just first stated, it's in a CDBG eligible area. And the majority, I would say, people who utilize that park, if not all, probably fall within the category, the income categories. But it's pure nonsense to suggest that people who go to that park, have to bring check stubs with them? Who's going to even be checking this? Nobody. We don't have personnel working these parks, and if they are working, I hope they're teaching swimming or arts and crafts, not checking check stubs and stupid stuff like that. I understand you're just making a report to us, but it's absurd. It's absurd. I want some further research done with regard to these parameters of use, because it's so ridiculous. And with regard to the need for these, absolutely, I support both of these fields being done. Absolutely. We've been trying for so many years, not just 5 years or 10 years, longer than that, to get the money together. And definitely both fields have to be done at the same time. How do you do just one side? First off, it's messy, and it's not the best way to do things, and it's not the most economical way to complete a project. The most economical way is to do everything at one time. These fields are basically one huge rectangle divided down the middle for the separation. It all has to be done at once, and period. And with regard to the funding, I suppose we spent, $1 million on the plans and specs and so forth, because it was 1.9, now it's down to 1.8. How much did we spend
We spend about $190,000 on the design work. Yes.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. I thought it was more than that. But the point is, we definitely need to do 2 fields, and I want some verification. Did they put that in writing, that children who go to that park on a Saturday afternoon have to, show their parents' Social Security card, IRS statements, check stubs? I mean, did they put that in writing to us?
We have responses from the Department of HUD.
Because it's ridiculous.
And if I can just comment, while this relates to a park For example, during the summer months, we operate summer day camp programs. And if someone wants to qualify for that summer day camp program, they have to do the exact same thing.
Wait a minute, it's very different for us to have an organized, city-operated program where we're going to have complete control over the participants who are going to come on a daily basis for, say, 4 weeks in a row. It's very different for us to seek some type of eligibility from the parents at a sign-up time. That's very different than a regional park, which is a park, it's open. People just drop in, they play. There's baseball diamonds, there's swimming pools. So, you know, that's...
I agree with you, Councilwoman, and that's HUD's point, that it's not just the neighborhood folks that come to the park. And so if it were a neighborhood park, we've actually utilized funding for CDBG in smaller parks. For example, we put a playground in at Saminsky Park. But by HUD standard, that park primarily is used just by the residents there. You don't see people coming from Orange County or whatever to go to Saminsky Park. But they may come to Edward Vincent Park to play in a tournament or what have you. And they're saying that when that happens, the bulk of those people may very well not be low to moderate income individuals. I am not disagreeing with you. I understand, but we are just trying to respond to HUD.
I understand, and that's the report that you're giving. Well, we need to renovate both fields. They need to have artificial turf. The details with regard to, and they both need to be done at the same time for sure. So I don't know what to recommend, Mayor. Obviously, these restrictions of checking pay stubs and stuff is so stupid. It's just beyond the pale. Now, if we want to put something in where people can't have tournaments, I don't know. The point is, this is a regional park, and actually the region is pretty much CDBG as well. I mean, the regional area around there, actually so many miles around that area, I would venture to say, tend to fall within the appropriate category. So, with regard to placing on the record, I want both the fields done. I want them both done as soon as possible, and I want them on artificial turf, because that way people can play every day of the year. Right now with grass, what happens is they're shut down for months while grass is growing. They get the grass up to a certain level, and then they play on it and wear it all down until it's dirt. Then they're playing on dirt for months until it gets shut down for 3 months where they plant new grass. The fields are never available. Artificial turf, ladies and gentlemen, is the best interest of the community because people can play on them every day, 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year. We have to make sure we get this done. We have to do it in such a fashion that it works for us as a community. And right now, based on this information, it's not even practical. I don't even know how HUD would suggest you do it on a Saturday or Sunday when people drop in. Thanks,
Okay.
Mayor.
All right. Any other comments? Councilman Frank?
Yes, thank you. I piggyback with my colleague. We have been trying our best moving forward on this project. We even received funds from, I believe it was Nike, to help us move this project forward. I think it's the right group. But the point is that we have been promoting this opportunity, and now we are at a threshold that they're saying there's specific criteria that is required. Two things. One would be an insult to the residents. Two, an insult to a tournament that we may have when people want to participate and then find out they got to have a card check and to verify whether or not they're eligible. So I want to raise the issue regarding the HUD standard where, and I'm going to quote what's in our packet, where it says the project will benefit at least 51% of the residents in the census tract / area surrounding the location, and additionally, the project must directly benefit low and moderate income residents based on HUD standards. So if in fact we're able to show that there is a certain percentage of the residents in the surroundings that meet the financial criteria, well then that will leave us the constraints that they're now saying false is for the overall use versus periodic use by people that may not be part of that track.
If I'm not mistaken, we've provided that information, taking that approach already from HUD, letting them know that was our point. It falls within CDBG eligible shaded areas, such that they have said by these being qualifying areas that these individuals here are CDBG eligible. They again rebut that with, that's fine, but you can't guarantee that only those individuals are going to be utilizing the field.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And if they're not, then we need to have a mechanism in place to be able to document who's using the field. And no, we don't have staff. And there is a concern that whatever we promise to do, that we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then my final comment is that whatever direction this council wants to take, clearly we need to follow, seek out the city attorney's direction and advice, because once we try to move forward and this funding is going to be appropriated, then the next issue we got to do is the staffing ability and notifying the pre-programs, as my colleague in District 2 said, that these events are going to take place and here's the criteria. I'm concerned we may be exposed with potential lawsuit in some form of discriminatory process. And then the other one I would raise is the fact that how you're going to be able to manage it on non-game events where it's just people just collectively coming together, and then you have to corner people who said, no, I just come to use the field. So I just raised that concern. Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Barnes, you know, I have to agree, not to you, but I think this is an absurdly bureaucratic response that you received from HUD. And I echo the comments of Councilwoman Dunlap and Franklin, but I don't even see logistically how it would be even possible to monitor this on a daily basis. I mean, whoever gave you this advice is setting the city up for failure. So do we have some time constraints on, in the extremely near future when we have to make this application? We have a little bit of time, is that right?
The funding for this particular project has been unencumbered until we can get the guidelines in place. But the monies that we're talking about do have to be spent by a certain period.
Okay, what I would recommend and what I'd like to do, I'd like to meet with Congresswoman Waters and officials from HUD, because I don't know how high up in the food chain you talk to people, but I think this is something that we solve with just common sense and just some discussion. Once someone understood the advice we've been given and the impossibility logistically to do this, it's just not right. So maybe we could table this for a moment.
Well, I'd like to make a comment before you do that.
May I finish, please? That's my recommendation, that possibly we table this for a moment and seek an audience with the Congresswoman and HUD officials, and maybe we could get a better letter of explanation. Anyway, those are my comments. Councilman Stevens?
Yes, I'd just like to offer a little bit of clarity for my colleagues. Number one, this is in my district, and I do not approve of option 1. I would much rather have option 3, which is place a hold on the project until funding can be identified that will eliminate any use restrictions. That's option number 3. In the event the city elects not to use CDBG funds for the artificial turf project, the city may reprogram the funds for use for other CDBG eligible projects. We can use this for other CDBG projects, correct, Ms. Barnes?
That's my understanding. Yes, you can.
Okay. Subject to approval by HUD. In this case, the fields will remain unimproved until adequate funding can be acquired to rehabilitate one or both fields. Now, that's option 3 here for tonight. What I'd like for my colleagues to understand is that I do not support this at all, because number one, you're going to have maintenance on this. Quarterly maintenance is what El Segundo has on their artificial turf fields, which is going to cost the city. So we're going to find either grant funding or we're going to pay for that out of the general fund. Number 2, in reference to who utilizes the field, that is going to come down to the organizations themselves. Mr. Morales, he's one of the originally founding fathers. His family started the Inglewood Soccer League that utilizes this field. There's other groups. It's going to come down to what is the economic makeup of each one of those organizations. And if those organizations exceed 51%, then they will, in fact, be excluded. Well, this money would be far better utilized for a swimming pool in this city. We have a swimming pool that has not been refurbished, or not, the locker room was refurbished, but the pool itself has not been enlarged. Yet we're a service provider to Los Angeles, which we need to address that issue sometime in the future. We also have an issue with this particular item here, in that we have a gentleman here, and I am familiar with Villarreal, plays soccer. My daughter plays soccer. The very reason why she plays in other cities other than Inglewood is because of the fact that when she did play out that field with the Westchester League, she fell and her entire arm was skinned, because it's nothing but dirt. And the reason it's nothing but dirt is because we have no management of the field. Basically, at one time, they even had an actual cargo locker out there, And it was almost like it was these organizations' own personal field. Yet they were not even based out of Inglewood. And they're making money, by the way. They are revenue-generating entities, every single last one of them. And it's not that ethnically diverse. Now, my point is this, is that when we're dealing with soccer or any professional sports team, they donate their turf. The Galaxy facility out there, the Home Depot Center, they will donate their AstroTurf because they replace it yearly. We just need to get in line and apply. Ask them. That's all. And I'm sure if this gentleman here who came here today has contacts with Mr. Villarreal, who was one of their new soccer players from Inglewood, lived on 110th Street, 111th, I believe it is, then he should be able to, or we should even be able to contact him. My point is that and then there's another factor here, is that we have youngsters who play not play professional football, they play Pop Warner football. And so we had talked about that, well, we're going to split the two fields. One will play football, one will play soccer. And it's still not going to be enough room. We're going to have conflict. We're going to end up with a problem out there. We definitely will, because on Pop Warner kids playing regular football, they're mostly black. Most of the kids who play soccer are mostly Hispanic. And the black kids are playing up and down the hills in Sentinel Park. The Hispanic kids are on the soccer field. You're going to have two fields there, and it's going to create conflict. And that's another issue. These teams who utilize these fields out here, they're not very ethnically diverse as far as the soccer teams are. And so those are issues that we have to address. And Ms. Barnes, I must say to you, is that as I've said to you previously, I'm not at all pleased, and it's in my district, I am not at all pleased with the condition of that field. I have personally gone out there and picked up trash. I have personally gone out there on Mondays and gone out there and seen the filth that's left behind after these out-of-town teams come to our city, utilize our field, and simply leave their waste in our city. And so I hope that we can work together, Ms. Barnes. I'm making sure that our park, Sentinel Park, is maintained properly. But I would opt for option number 3, personally, because there's other things that we can use those CDBG block grant funds for. $1,094,000.
Okay, we're at time.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to table and enter into discussions with.
No, I think the consensus of opinion, Mayor, is to table. Yeah, it's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll table this and enter into discussions with HUD and the Congresswoman to see if we can't get more sensible guidelines. All right, and we'll bring this back as soon as possible, Ms. Barnes.
Thank you.
All right, CM1.
No verbal reports, Mayor.
A1.
Well, actually, I have a question for the city manager. Regarding, last week, Mr. Fields, you spoke to a couple of items, and you mentioned that the city had sent 3 audits to LAWA. And I posed a question to you at that time that the last time we sent audits out without the council approving them was when Mr. Wanamaker was here. And that's when we went from a $20 million surplus to an $18.7 million deficit, structural deficit. What I'm sharing with you is we have to utilize good, sound financial policies, and that means an audit before it's sent to anyone is approved by this council. So I would like you to put that on the agenda. I want to see these audits, and they should not have been sent out, so period. There's no such thing as a draft audit that's sent out to another agency. We needed to approve it, to review it. The public would have an opportunity to see it as well. So those 3 audits, I would like to receive a copy. I'm assuming my colleagues would like them as well. And you might want to put them on the agenda to be approved. I'm assuming they're for different years, but I don't know. But when we see them, we can talk about that. Also, there were 2 police officers here at the beginning of the meeting, and I asked you with regard to if any of these 2 officers last week were on overtime. It's been a whole week. I've received no information on that. And at 9:30 in the evening, there were 6 officers here. And I asked you, if we have 6 officers here in uniform, I asked you how many were out on the streets of the city of Inglewood on patrol. That would have been at 9:30 p.m. It's been a whole week. I've heard nothing. And I actually did repeat these questions to the chief of police actually on Wednesday, the very next day. And I've received nothing from either of you. So please follow up with that if you would. Overtime for any of these officers that were here, and how many officers were on patrol at 9:30 last Tuesday evening, and copies of those 3 audits that apparently have been sent to LAWA. Thank you very much.
Yes. Mayor and Council, if I can clarify the issue regarding the audits. I wouldn't characterize them as audits. There actually are end-of-the-year reports that we have to do whenever we get a grant from LAWA. And right now, they've not been submitted in their final form. Right now, what we're doing is we're working through the responses with them. They're working with us to make sure they're accurate. And once we have presented them in a manner that LAWA will see fit to accept them in, we will bring them to the council for approval. But right now, they're not final. It's basically staff working with them to present the information and have dialogue with them about how we can submit them in their final format.
Well, actually, Mr. Fields, thank you very much. You used the word audit, and so I assume they were actually audits based on that. If it indeed is a matter of reconciliation of a financial report, that's a whole different matter, and I would be very happy to receive those when they are at a point to present them to us. Thank you.
A1.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. There was a closed session held as to CS1, closed session confidential attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B1, claim of Brookhalter Niemer, request a motion to authorize payment of billings.
I so move.
Second.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
There was a closed session held as to CS2, closed session confidential attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B1, claim of Dale Richardson and Associates. Request motion to authorize payment of billing.
Second.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
There was a closed session held as to CS3, closed session confidential real property negotiator meeting under Government Code Section 54956.8, real property negotiations for the disposition and redevelopment of various city-owned properties located from the 3800 to 4000 block of Century Boulevard and 102nd Street, along the 10100 to 10200 block of South Prairie Avenue. And I think it's 912-9032-002-91. There's numerous parcels described. Real property negotiator for Madison Square Garden was Elizabeth Collins. City of Inglewood negotiator is Artie Fields, city manager. There was discussions held in closed session, however, no final action was taken in closed session.
I have a comment, Mayor.
Councilwoman Dunlap.
Yes, is there anything with regard to this matter? Because when the public reads CS3, it doesn't, it's kind of confusing, or they don't really understand it. What is it, Mr. Fields, you believe it would be appropriate in open session to share with regard to this item?
I don't think it would be appropriate to share at this moment any more discussion other than what the city attorney has read, so that we do not jeopardize our negotiations with Madison Square Gardens and all the other parties involved.
Oh, well, I'll accept your opinion on that. I wasn't speaking about specifics. I was only speaking about some generality, because someone asked me earlier, and I thought, well, you could say what you thought was appropriate with regard to this item, because it talks about real property negotiations, and people ask, oh, are we, anyway, they're asking questions. So I thought if there's anything you could share, fine. If not, that's your call.
Yeah, I don't think I would prefer to say anything at this point.
Thank you.
There was a closed session held as the CS4 and CSA1 closed session, confidential attorney-client privilege, potential litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9B1, denial of certain enforceable obligations by the California Department of Finance in the low and moderate income due diligence report and recognized obligation payment schedule. Number 3, discussions were held, however, no final action was taken. And that concludes the reports out of closed session for this evening, and there are no verbal reports, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. CC1,
No reports. Thank you, Mayor.
CT1, Madam City Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a brief report, and I would like to point out that the bills that was paid for the month of January thus far have been $10 million, and the net payroll has been $2.4 million, and the total for the month has been $12.4 million. And also, there were 2 bond purchases for the city of Inglewood. One was a Fannie Mae with a coupon of 1.03, and the rates are picking up just a little bit. And this is a 5-year non-call for 1 year with 1 year of call protection. So that was an excellent buy. And also, I bought a federal farm credit bond at the rate of 0.94. It is also a 5-year non-call for 6 months bond. So we have 6 months of call protection. And that one was purchased from Wedbush Securities. And the other bond was purchased from Higgins Capital. And also, I would like to point out that the debt service for the Inglewood Public Finance Authority lease revenue bonds, a series for 2012, the debt service payment for February of $439,572.32. That payment is due on the 15th, and it has to be remitted by February the 1st. And that, and with regards to interest rates, they continue to be quite low. In the 1-year area, the bond rate is really 0.18 to about 0.30, and even in the 2-year and 3-year range is about as low as 0.27 to about 0.55. And even in the 4-year range, the bond rates are 0.65 to 1%. And the 5-year range, roughly about 0.875 to about 1%. And there are some that are a little bit higher, 1.375, but these bonds are at a premium, and I never purchased premium bonds. And I do have a conference coming up. It's going to be held at Cal Poly that I will be attending, and that conference starts tomorrow. And Deborah Crenshaw will be acting as treasurer in my absence. And I would like to point out there was also a rather interesting article that appeared in California City News, and it's entitled "Need Some Extra Revenue." And one of these cash-strapped cities, what they're doing is they're actually using online to shed some of the items. So that just thought I just might mention that, and it brought in roughly about $100,000 for that particular city. And that concludes my report and my remarks.
I have a comment.
Thank you. Councilwoman Dunlap.
Yes, so with regard to your bond purchases, what was the source of the funds for those bond purchases?
Well, I've answered that question about 5 times, Councilwoman, that you have
excuse me,
answered
did you?
it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
and
talking about the bonds you just referenced this evening. I'm not talking about last week or the week before. The
Well-
ones that you just referenced. I don't recall asking you about those in the past.
All of the bonds that I do purchase come primarily from the general fund. That's where most of our funds come from. And our primary source of funds, as you know, is from sales utility funds and so from property taxes. So basically, all of the funds that I use on behalf of the city comes from the general fund. And when I was buying for the redevelopment, those were basically bond proceeds for the most part.
Because last week you'd mentioned the successor agency, and so I wanted last week you'd mentioned that successor agency.
Yes, well, the successor agency, yes.
All right, thank you.
Public comment.
No, we have to go to
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
successor agency.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Calling to the City of Inglewood to order as a successor agency, Madam City Clerk,
A quorum is present.
CSA 3.
Approval of the minutes held November 27th and December 4th, 2012.
So moved.
Second.
Agency members, Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Buds.
Aye. CSA 4.
Staff report recommending approval of professional service agreements with Kaiser Marston and Associates to provide economic consulting services.
So moved.
Second.
I
Staff
want a
report.
staff report, yeah.
Chair and members of the board, the item before you is a request to approve a contract between Kaiser Marston and a successor agency. We are required to prepare what is called a land management plan or long-term land management plan for all of the agency properties, and the plan should include our different ways of what we want the land uses to be and what we want, how the disposition will take place, what processes we're going to undergo. So at this time, we've asked, we've put some funds in the ROPS for ROPS 3. The way the DOF has worked out so far is that they're making us hold to a line item. So if we have somebody on a particular line item, say line 2, they always have to stay there. And it's not always that easy to add additional vendors. And so right now they've locked it. They've created a different kind of way to do the ROPS where we don't, they actually send it to us and there's parts that are locked. And so we purposely went ahead, since we've worked in the past with Kaiser Marston, they're familiar with us, we went ahead, and they have a lot of experience doing these kinds of things. We went ahead and asked that an agreement be made between them and the successor agency so we can go forward and start preparation of this plan.
Thank you.
Comment?
Councilman Dunlap.
Yes, I recognize the need that we have for these type of services. I do know there are other consulting companies out there that do this kind of work. I'm going to vote against this contract because I'm not a supporter of Kaiser Marston and Associates. I do recognize we need the service, but I prefer another company. Thank you.
I have a
Councilman
question for Ms.
Stevens.
Cruz. Ms. Cruz,
Yes.
when it comes to these expenditures, $60,000, and the state of California notified us, if I'm not mistaken, that many of the legal services that we have spent, we will not be able to utilize those, our successor agency funds. Is that correct? The letter dated December 24th from the successor agency?
No, most of the, there
What
were,
did they
there were
disallow?
separate,
What did they disallow?
they disallowed all of the funding for the housing authority except for 2 line items.
What about services, though?
On services, they disallowed the, well, not services so much, they also disallowed the, any projects that required bond funding. So there was a Century reconstruction, they said that would have to be on hold until we got our, get this management plan approved. Also, the senior center was placed on hold until we get this management plan approved, because that's just part of what we need to do. But services, in terms of legal services, we didn't.
All legal services will be paid?
The only ones that didn't get approved were the ones related to the COPA project, because the COPA project itself was not approved, and so the legal services related to COPA project were not approved.
So this $60,000, this has been pre-approved already?
By DOF, yes, for us to be able to use it towards the land use management plan.
Is there any possibility that they may change their mind?
No, once it's been approved and they know that it's a required, legislative requirement, we can go forward.
Okay, so Mr. Fields, this is what I want to know. If we, in fact, pay a consultant, pay a vendor, a contractor that provides consulting services, and the DOF rejects it, then we, of course, have to repay the Department of Finance, State of California, correct?
Councilmember, with all due respect, I think you're asking an unlikely scenario. I mean, according to our conversations with the DOF and to our knowledge at this point, this is not a
But they have
we're not
rejected-
identifying a funding source that would not be approved by DOF. We're confident that they would approve it.
Those services that have been rejected by the Department of Finance,
This is not one of them.
we haven't had any services.
This is not one of them, though.
Okay,
You-
but we have had services that have been rejected, correct?
I'm not sure if
They're-
services,
Well,
Ms.
let's
Cruz
ask
just
Ms.
went
Cruz.
through.
Maybe she's more.
They're related to projects, okay?
Okay, but
They
they'll-
generally, when they disallow something, it's because they've disallowed a specific project. And so when we talk about the services that have been rejected, we have the Copra project was disallowed.
The Abode project, was that disallowed?
Huh?
The Abode project?
The Abode project was put on hold because of, it's one of those projects that will be receiving bond funding in the future once we find our finding of, get our finding of completion. So there's certain things that, in the letter that they said, we're not going to approve this now. Once you get your finding of completion, then we will reconsider and it'll likely be approved. And that applies to the Century Reconstruction, the Abode project, using additional or remaining housing bond proceeds, and also, as I said, the city
So,
project.
Ms. Cruz,
Huh?
I thought the letter read that it was disallowed, not on hold, the Abode
The
project.
letter said that it's disallowed for ROPS 3,
Mhm.
but that when we get our finding of completion, that we may put it back on.
Okay, so it wasn't, the letter didn't say on hold, is my point. So this is my question. If it continues to be disallowed, and we've spent money on consultants, then we then have to make that money, we now have to reimburse the Department of Finance. And my question is, from what funding source in the city does that come from? Is that the general fund?
We're not going to be approving services with a consultant for those items that have been
That's not my
disallowed.
question. If they are disallowed.
But we're
by
not asking.
By DOF, I'm just asking a question.
If they're
If
disallowed,
this is later disallowed by the Department of Finance, this $60,000, and it's disallowed, then where do we find the money from? Where does
at
the money
this
come
time, the
from in
money
order
has
to
already
reimburse
been
the state?
remitted to us. The monies for the ROPS 3 period, which is the January 1 to June 30th period, has already been provided to us. And so the $60,000 that we're talking about for this plan has already been provided to us by the Department of Finance. And so we already have it within our own bank accounts. They are, the idea is not that, this is an approved amount. They recognize it's a legislative requirement. And so they have approved this amount for this plan.
Okay, so now So let's deal with what we do know. The money that has been disallowed, say the Copra project.
Mhm.
That funding for legal services, we now have to make that money reimburse the state of California for those funds, for legal services.
No, that project was, those legal services were approved during the ROPS 1 and ROPS 2 period. And so we're just starting ROPS 3 period, so we're not taking action at this point. We're not taking legal action regarding that. So those are not services that we're drawing from for that particular
So
project.
all of the services, all of the consulting services for all of the projects that have been disallowed, all of the consulting services, all the legal services, all the consulting services, the state of California has said that we do not have to we do not need to reimburse them for
If-
their money.
If it was approved during ROPS 1 period, we get to expend our funds. If it was approved during ROPS 2 period, we get to expend our funds. That some things were not approved during ROPS 3 period,
so-
and so we are not going to
All
expend them.
right, so you're gonna, okay, so let me just ask you one more time. If, little word, if, Ms. Cruz, if we are not if a consultant, if a lawyer is not sanctioned by the state of California, from what fund in this city do we pull the money from to reimburse the state of California? Is it in fact, Mr. City Manager, Ms. Cruz, the general fund?
Again, Councilman Morales, say that we're not going to put ourselves in a situation where we would have to refund any money with the general fund.
Okay, that's time. Well, Ms. Cruz, let me ask you one simple question. For instance, the only way that we would contract with Kaiser Marston is if the Department of Finance had already in a ROPS approved and provided us the funding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have we ever had a case where they approved and provided funding in a ROPS, where they came back later and said, no, we want the money back?
No.
All right, thank you. Madam City Clerk.
Agency members, Stevens.
No.
Dunlap.
No.
Franklin.
Aye.
Chairman Buds.
Aye. Adjourn the City of Inglewood as successor agency.
And
Public
to the City Council, a quorum is present.
back to City Council. Any persons wishing to address the council on any other matter not here on the agenda may do so at this time.
My name's Alfonso Parker Jr. Is the recorder on? My name's Alfonso Parker Jr. I'm a Vietnam vet, conscious ejector, and I'm alive. That means I never carried a weapon, never killed anybody in Vietnam. I was placed there by the government. Make a long story short, the mayor made a spectacle out of the meeting the other night, as Judy Dunlap spoke to, why there were 2 police officers for the first time in the meeting, which there are tonight. The Inglewood Police in here, Sergeant, have never had problem with any community member in this organization or meeting. When they had to come up, the people recognized them and they followed instructions. This was a political thing because in this newspaper, 2 days later, there was a professional news reporter with a cameraman being in publications and media presentation and having a United States Air Force secret clearance all my life and understanding what privacy is, was placed here to specifically take this whole thing, and it's in the paper denigrating, in a sense, Judy Dunlap and Councilman Stevens. Miss Yvonne Horton, she stated the issue of the signatures on that changing the dates from 1st and 3rd. She stated that it came to her. She did not change signatures. She had nothing to do with the signatures, and she clarified that very distinctly in this meeting. Am I right? And this is what she did because it is her responsibility, knowing what privacy and what secret clearance requires. It is documented. There's a certain procedure. It's redact. It's called store and retrieval. That comes from the federal government, United States Air Force, okay? You cannot deviate from it. Now, you did your job. Nobody accused you of that. What they were asking is how it got into the system. You stated that it came to you, and all you did was pass it on because that was, you were instructed to do that. Private material, there's a procedure Air Force requires. It must have all proper markings, dated, title, date it came in, who did it, when it was done, and what the subject is. And these markings are precise. Any deviation from any one of these markings, it compromises that document. It is to be immediately taken and destroyed in a burn barrel, not crosshatched, and another one generated. That system, that document, I don't have to look at it. I can tell the way it was discussed. It's been tampered with. And I don't have to see it. I dare you to show it to me. I'll show how it was tampered with. It's gonna come out. And I applaud you for not letting them whoever did it, throwing you under the bus, because in the paper here, you have the city clerk like you that just is testifying now at present. I forget the city, I don't know if it's Bell, but she is testifying because the first one they're gonna come to is you because the document came in through you, through somebody else. And she has gotten immunity, which you will be able to get now because you clarified what your situation, but you will be called, and you'll probably get immunity. But you two need to get your paperwork out there and deal with this.
We're at time, sir.
This is a federal crime.
Sir, we're at
What you
time.
did.
My name is Ethel Austin. I want to make an announcement and also ask everyone in the city of Inglewood to come tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, to participate with our Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority. The homeless, we must count the homeless. It's very important that we count them so we can house them. And we will be escorted by Inglewood PD, the Sheriff's Department. Everything going to be on hold. This is being processed through the governor and Mark Ridley Thomas, our 2nd District Supervisor, through the county. So I'm asking everyone to appear tomorrow at 8 o'clock, pick up your gear, sign in, get your T-shirts. It's going to be a lot of fun. And also, I want to mention something else. One other thing. In the Inglewood newspaper, Mayor Butts, you had that, he put down that you ejected 2 people. You did eject me. The only thing was that You cut it out, the tape, the CD. It's not there. I was standing here at the dais trying to get your attention. And I see you said the meeting is called back to order. So I was standing here asking you, is the tape on? And I kept asking you over and over and over, and you kept yelling and arguing with everyone. Michael then in turn asked you also, is the tape rolling? You told him, I told you the tape was rolling. So I'm steady saying, Mayor, is the tape? Just answer me, please. Now, I had 2 minutes and 22 seconds on my time, on the clock. So, Mayor, I'm an activist. I'm not throwing out. And Willie Brown, don't ever address me again like that. If you want to say, talk and take up for him, do it right. Call our name. I don't mind you using my name. Don't matter. Can't do nothing about it. All you could do is sink your own ship. That's all. So anyway, I want to say that. Also, Joe Testerio, he was within his rights, as the two councilmen said. I think what you did was violation of the Ralph Brown Act. I will be contacting FPPC, Ralph Franklin, Morales, and Butts. I will be reporting you all, and the Ralph Brown Act. I will be reporting. I'm working on that now. We all are, because what you all did was really unfounded. And the comments that you made, Ralph, about God and all of this, it shouldn't be done on that dais. You're the main one busting the door down, but you're the main one skinning everybody behind their back. And God don't like that. You're the worst ever. You're just part two of it. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'd like to ask Ms. Austin where people are supposed to go if they want to participate in the census of homeless people. Where are they to meet? Could you share that with us?
We're going to meet tomorrow night, 8 p.m. You must come in to get trained partially.
No, but where?
At City Hall, Community Room A.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Michael Benbow, District 1. Basically, I'm here to comment about some of the utilities that are going on in the city of Inglewood, and I'm going to need cooperation of our city council and city staff. I have a major complaint with the communication systems that's going on, and that's the telephone lines, cable lines, that sort of thing in Inglewood. These got to be some of the worst lines in Los Angeles. And I'm not just assuming that. I've had the technicians that go up on the poles and tell us that for many a year. He said this is the worst city, is in the worst shape in all of South California, Southern California. He said these cable lines and wires all need changing. They're just juggling the lines to make everything work. And anybody that's got telephone lines here and use a telephone or have Time Warner Cable who also use these lines also, your cable's going out all the time. And you call in for technical support all the time. I know I've had plenty of trouble with my telephones, and I'm constantly being told by the linemen, the people who go up on the poles, that this system needs, the whole system, they said, needs changing. I know I'm not the only one that's heard this. Anybody that's talked to these people that go up the lines, they'll tell you all the same thing. I've said it 3 or 4 times in the last 4 years or so, but it's still not being changed. We've got the worst lines there is, and we need to do something about it. As a city, we need to do something about it because we're paying the bills and they're not giving us the service. Everybody else got new lines and new technical equipment to get their phone calls and televisions working and that sort of thing. And we're working with some of the most antiquated systems and antiquated equipment there is. We need the help. And I'm asking mayor and city council to please look into it. And once you get the results, you'll find out that what I'm saying to you is the truth. And let's do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Diane Sombrano. I would hope, once again, and I'm going to keep on saying it forever, that you fix the microphone and continue to try to broadcast the meetings, even though they are not entirely broadcast. As we discovered for the first time, I actually looked at the tape, and no. We, in this room, witnessed something that was not shown that we're dismissing, we're going to recess, we're coming back thing did not appear. Every broadcast is supposed to be gavel to gavel. And this immediate going to recess when you think you won't like something that someone is saying is wrong. I will go ahead and address those officers that were here last week. There were 14 people in this audience, 1 on a walker, 1 on a cane. I'm going to assume the ladies will not mind my generalizing on their age. Some of them are in their 80s, 60s, and 70s. You had 6 officers for the 14 people in this room, and that included some of your own fan club members. So I'm going to assume that you've done one really pathetic job in your hiring requirements for police officers if it took all of them to subdue I was the most active. Reggie, if you can't take me out by yourself, honey, you should turn in your badge. You know, that's really sad. That was an abusive use of intimidation on the part of one person in this council. And that is where it lies, with one person of this council and the bobbleheads who go along. And I'm going to tell you that that will be your downfall. You are to represent the people, not rule them, not lord over them, and you have done a pathetic job of that. I will remind anyone who listens that the Miranda warnings stand as the federal law, and not even Mr. Butts can overrule them. For any officer, check the ruling. Personal responsibility, the city will not cover and cannot cover the expenses of a personal lawsuit. Oh, the joys of being able to read. Brings me back to the statements of Margarita Cruz. Funny how what she said conflicts with what is on the Department of Finance letterhead that anyone can call off the internet. And as long as we're going down false statements, old people, seniors, don't forget what they signed. That was a cut and paste job. I found the source. And guess what? It is not nice for people to use sign-in sheets. Robert's rules, the Brown Act, don't like it very much when they're avoided. You know what? I would suggest that no one sign in any time for any city function or anywhere else to prevent such further misuse. You know, you're the one who said you thought this was like a reality show. No, it is our reality. You're the only one who thinks it's a show.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Joseph Texera. Let me first thank those members of the public and of the council who condemned the dishonest and un-American actions of Mayor Butts last week when he first lied to the public saying that my time to speak was over when everyone saw I had 35 seconds left, and second, when he ordered the Sergeant of Arms to remove me from this podium, pushing my face up to the wall in the lobby, not because there was probable cause that I committed any crime or violated any rule, but just because I played a tape recording of an IPD officer refusing to investigate the attempted murder of my neighbor's son and his friend. No wonder killers in Inglewood rarely get caught, including the killers of Frederick Taylor, who was killed over 9 months ago in broad daylight when he protected his son from gunfire. IPD officers have said on tape that in Inglewood, shooting a gun out of a car isn't really a crime. And if the victim of the shooting doesn't call IPD, IPD won't investigate. And if someone gets shot at in Inglewood, they brought it on themselves. Tell that to the families of the people that have died, Mayor Butts. And then Mayor and Morales and Franklin violate the rules of these meetings specifically to hide those problems in IPD, banning audio recordings in a city of color, even though city councils in predominantly white cities allowed their residents to use computers and overhead projectors and play audio tapes in their council meetings. On October 9th, Morales told the public that the city attorney had told him that the Brown Act didn't allow the public to use audio tapes, that it was illegal, but I proved that was a lie. So what happened last week? The city attorney changed his story, now saying that the Brown Act doesn't force the council to let the public play audio tapes. But even that's deceptive. The Brown Act specifically says on page 1, quote, "The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know," unquote. Anyone who denies that the Brown Act promotes more information to the public, not less information, is either ignorant or dishonest. And more importantly, the official rules of these meetings don't ban playing audio tapes. So why are Butts, Morales, and Franklin trying to hide information from the public? On October 9th, Morales admitted on tape that after 100 years of council meetings, this brand new ban on playing audio tapes happened because I played a recording exposing police misconduct. No wonder violent crime is so high in the city. I told 3 or 4 IPD officers I wanted an attempted murder investigated with at least 2 victims, 4 witnesses, and multiple bullet shells in the street, and it took IPD 2 hours to come out and actually get out of their car. But I play a tape recording in a council meeting, and there's 2 officers here up to the 9th floor in 10 minutes to detain, search, and escort me out of the building. With 11 seconds left, this is what IPD thinks about Inglewood neighbors.
Ms. Davis, come forward.
Wait a minute, Mayor, I'm rising to a point of order. When did you call a recess? I'm sitting here.
I said it just a minute ago. Ms. Davis?
Hi, I'm Dr. Jean Davis, longtime resident of District 2, and I was happy to see that this was one of the rare meetings that I've actually had the opportunity to come to, and there was not discourse. Our city council members should be proactively engaged with honest civil discussion and not conflict-ridden political grandstanding. Since I've been coming here, I've just seen weekly pontification, and it does not display independent thinking. It does not display leadership. It displays disorder. And the lady before said that this was not a reality show, this was our reality, but this may be our reality, but as it looks from those who are watching us on TV, it's a reality show. I know all of you council persons received a letter from a senior citizen, and you know who I'm speaking of. And she said exactly how she felt about everything that was going on here. And this woman is in her 80s, walks around with a walker, could not come tonight, but you know who I'm talking about. She wrote you all a letter and asked you please to carry yourself in a much more civil manner than what you have been carrying yourself. Now, like others, I didn't have the opportunity to look at the video. I don't know what was on, what was off. But I asked the question, was it on when one of our members actually accused our mayor of a felony? And that's slander. Was it on then? Is anyone actually going to say anything about that? I mean, where are we supposed to be when we actually have this kind of discourse in our community? And we're supposed to be the leaders of our community. We're here to try to make sure that the business of Inglewood moves forward, not to deal with personality conflicts and inappropriate behavior. So I ask you as city council members, please modify your behavior and have more meetings like the meeting that we had tonight.
Thank you.
My time started before I start. Yeah. I haven't said anything.
Mr. Matthews, you said it twice.
Okay, well, thanks. All right, we won't be late, but, you know. Anyway, Gil Matthew, District 4, Mayor and City Council. I must tell this council we have some serious financial problems. And the transparency is not here. Now, Ms. Cruz is saying the denials don't mean much or whatever. That's very serious. And every letter that comes to this city is on the internet. And we have a substantial amount of denials. And the question arises is this: when it's denied and the service already provided, who's going to pay for the service? This city is $1 billion in debt. Now, does anybody recognize that? The school district is in receivership. Where is the money? Where is the quarterly financial report? The successor agency and the city are two different agencies. The successor agency is state agency. The city is a municipality of the city of Inglewood. Those monies are separate. And what has happened is they've taken monies from the state to balance the general fund. That's a known fact. And then again, on the ROPS and the Department of Finance is telling you how can you negotiate with yourself. And that's all been denied. That's state law. You can't transfer money from a state agency and negotiate with yourself and give it to the city. I mean, let's be real. And we need some transparency. And it's going to happen one way or another. You're going to bankrupt the city, but the state is going to get their money. You can be sure of that. And we need some transparency. We need some overview of what this agency is, what is the condition of it, and where do we go and get a plan B. Now you have a GAN amendment. You still have $23 million that you can tap. But stop all of this. This city is dysfunctional. You just, I've never seen anything like this. But this thing is serious. And I don't know what it's going to take for you to understand that. We are broke. Capital B-R-O-K-E. Ladera Heights, your school district is in receivership. Now sell your property with no school district.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew.
Roy Fisher, the First District. Number one, with regard to this DR2 that you pulled this evening, it was curious to me that you had this DR2 on calendar for this evening, and also you had the one item which you pulled for tomorrow. And I really don't understand that. I don't understand this successor agency, as Mr. Matthews was just stating about, what are they doing, and can they do whatever with these properties, You had it on here this evening, and then tomorrow you had it on today. I don't know why you would have it twice, unless it's just to get the people so they would not be interested in coming back to find out about it. You need to be honest with the people and tell us where you're at and where you're going, with this thing. I'm going to go back to what I said this earlier today. With regard to those monies that were given to the basketball team, the young Clippers or whatever they were, where are they at? Where are those uniforms being used? We paid the $12,000 back, but there's $2,000. I want some answers to that, to those questions. Those are our tax dollars, and I would like to have you answer those questions for the people. The things that went on last week were just terrible, and we all have to remember that this is a democracy and not a dictatorship or any other thing. We are in a democracy, and we are to be treated that way, and to respect each and every one of us, in this assembly. We don't come here to cause problems. We come here to ask questions, and we expect that we should have those questions that we ask answered. So don't throw us out or whatever. I came here last Wednesday when you decided on your chief of police. I was only the one person here, and the question that I posed to you, that if we hired a gentleman who was going to leave here shortly, we would be back in the same process again. You, Mr. Butts, told me that the average chief only stays for 3 years anyway. We shouldn't have to be, you've made your decision, but we shouldn't have to, just go through all this nonsense and pay additional salaries, just because somebody's friend is there.
My name is Willie A.G., and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood. My position is, as far as Centinela Park is concerned, we have Inglewood Little League football, who don't have a base to play in the city. We have Inglewood Blackhawks, who represent this city. They don't have a place to play in this city. We should have a park for these people to play, so that people can come out and in the city of Inglewood and see them play. I suggested that one of the fields at Centinela Park be equipped with soccer equipment, soccer equipment that will support semi-pro soccer. And the football field would be equipped with the same equipment, not equipment that you take down, you come in and you play and you take down and leave. The equipment should remain there, and there should be a football field and a soccer field, because you can't play soccer and football on the same field. It's been done for the last 12 years, I know, and it hasn't worked out. I would like to see soccer field and a football field, and if you use the CDGB fund, you can put the soccer field in, and it'll be paid for with that money. But the football field, you wouldn't be able to use it, So it's up to you guys to make up your mind what you want to do. But I support you. I think we got a good council, and we got we're on our way. But one thing that bothers me, the councilman in the 1st District feels like just because he was elected in the council district, everything that he wants done is supposed to be done. But I'd like to advise you, Mr. Councilman, that you need 2 more votes on the council to get anything done in the 1st District. And if you can't get 2 more votes on that council, there's nothing you can do for your district. You're just sitting there. You're just drawing money. You have to have 3 votes. But don't seem like you can get it through your head that you have to have 3 votes to represent the city, your district. And that goes for the rest of the district. They have to have 2 other votes.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, City Council, and staff. Regarding the police and the injunction that they want to have against the gangs, as we all know, America has the highest incarceration rate of any civilized nation in this world. The majority of them are people of color. The reason is because people of color have the hardest times getting jobs. In this city, there's nothing for the youth to do. They're not being educated. The state has taken over the educational system here. This is why you were voted into office, to maintain a standard for this city. And like Mr. A.G. says, he lives in the beautiful city of Inglewood. I live in what used to be the beautiful city of Inglewood. Now, this hall should be filled to the brim, but it's not, because I went around and talked to some of my neighbors. They watch the meetings over television. Now I find out tonight they're not getting the whole picture. And they're blaming certain council people for disrupting the meeting. I have something to say to the whole public and you. There's a quote from Plato, and it says, and I've repeated this before, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And from the way that the city of Inglewood is looking today, we're not being governed by anything but inferiority. Inferiority. And we thought that we had a council that was going to elevate the city of Inglewood. But all it's done is tear it down. There's just a couple of council people on this dais that really care about the people. I know one in particular who really cares about his district. Please, can you come together? Can you come together and help build up the city of Inglewood? I see you looking, Mayor. I know my time is up. Good evening.
Viola Gardner, District 1. I would like to say that Inglewood community is very much aware of what goes on here at the council meetings. I happen to have been shopping, and a lady walked up to me, and she said, "Are you that Miss Theo, the lady with the white hair that speaks at the council meetings?" I said, "That's me. The name is Theola. You can say T, or whatever, and I'll answer." She said, "I want to tell you how truthful you are when you come before the council, and how much, as a community person, I appreciate the positive things that you say." And that's what I intend to say. I've lived in my home in Inglewood 51 years. You could say I was a trailblazer for a person of color. About 2 weeks afterwards, I saw many for sale signs go up on my street. And persons of color replaced those persons that moved. Miss Sly became one of my first neighbors. And she's been in her location about 49 years. This lady was so grateful for positive remarks that I make that she gave me $5 with love and a sign and a red pillow projecting love and Valentine's Day. I wanted to decline the money, but tears came in her eyes. And she said, "Please." She said, "This is a gift of love." And I said, "Then I have to accept love." We put Mike Stevens, and I'm going to call his name. We begged him, and I was one that did, because I worked with him when he first started. He was a trailblazer for LAX no expansion. This man worked and walked, and he spent his own money in order to run off flyers and papers and inform people and to try to get protection from the noise and disturbance of the airplanes. We are appreciative of that. And those persons that don't like it or don't like Mike Stevens, I'm sorry for you.
Okay, Ms. Gardner. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bailey?
Good, Billy. Once again, again. And I'm going to say, we live in a beautiful city of Inglewood, huh? But how long will it be beautiful if we do not build these soccer and football fields? That's the question I have to pose to somebody that says it's a beautiful city. Now, let's talk about the gang injunction. Yeah, this city is over rampant with gangs because last Friday, on the 200th of West Queen Street, last week, there was a gang shooting on the 200 block of West Queen Street last Friday at about 10 o'clock in the morning. That is a very known gang area, and we do need something to help the city out with our gang problem. And when you have a gang problem in this city the size of 9 miles long, there is no beautifulness. Yes, our city is being overtaken by gang with youth. We have our school system that is being taken over by the state because our parents do not inquire to our children why we cannot succeed. And if these children that are in the school system and think they have a grade of A, average, well, you can go to UCLA, you can go to USC, you can go to school in Pepperdine, and they'll look at that piece of paper, laugh at you, and say, you do not have an A average to go to these schools. Your school is trying to get you out of here with you saying, oh yeah, I did something. No, you didn't do nothing. You just think, your ego is what's making you say, oh yeah, I can apply to this college, I can apply to that college. They'll look at that piece of paper and say, you went to Inglewood High School or Morningside High School, and say, yeah, okay. You better go back to a community college and learn some real schooling, because that's how inferior our learning education is. And it's our fault. Yes, a minority black area cannot educate our children. I hate to say it like that, but that's just the way it is. You know? I can come up here and stand, it's a new year, it's the year 2013. President Obama has got reelected. Guess what he's saying now? This is last year, baby. I will be straight out. I will be very, very conscious of people's feelings, and this is something that we have to do as minorities. He's going to support gays. He's going to support the minorities, the immigrants. These are things that no other president in the history of the United States has ever tackled or just done. These are my comments. This is going to be an interesting year. Have a good night.
Thank you. Close public comment. Council comments, Councilman Stevens.
Yes, Mr. Fields, the corner of Crenshaw and Manchester. I have been working with Big Lots for some time now. Situation with Big Lots is that they are
Excuse me, Mr. Bailey?
They are in fact keeping their parking lot clean. They always have. The problem is, in fact, the clothing bin that was there. I contacted the owner of the clothing bin where people would donate their clothes, and they've since removed that unit. But we still have a problem there as far as on the outside wall at Manchester and Crenshaw. The lot itself is under the responsibility of Big Lots, but the wall on the outside and that portion that surrounds Rally Burgers is actually the responsibility of Rally Burgers. Now, I have spoken with Rally Burgers management on site several times, and I cannot seem to get them to move. So I would appreciate it if you could have our code enforcement entities simply pursue this issue, get it resolved. I need to have those weeds and all that grass outside of the wall taken care of, right there on the corner of Manchester and Crenshaw. Now, I'd like to thank Ms. Gardner for her comments. I want to say this. I am very much aware of what my constituents want and need because they tell me. They let me know. So my decisions are based upon what I believe they want, not necessarily what I want, but what they want. And then what I try to do is find a balance that equates what I know as far as documentation which I can share and that which I cannot share. Try to find that balance. But I want everyone out there to know is that I am very responsive to my constituents. So when we talk about Centinela Park, and we talk about that AstroTurf, $1 million worth of AstroTurf is going to be spent for people who do not live in the city of Inglewood. Remember, these are travel teams that are playing soccer there. And I have Inglewood children who are 6 years old to 13-year-olds playing Pop Warner football from Los Angeles and Inglewood too. And they're playing on hill slopes, up and down, up and down. And then I'm expected to put them in an environment where I know it's an accident waiting to happen, where one side of the field is going to be football, the other side is going to be soccer, and there still isn't going to be enough room for them. Still isn't going to be enough room. But yet I have open land all up and down Century Boulevard that could be used at no cost to the city. I had open land down here on Regent Street where a sanitarium was that could have been used for that purpose, and I proposed that. But it wasn't used. My residents do not appreciate low-income housing. They do not have appreciation for that. But I have some residents who need that because they're now seniors. So I have to find that balance. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that I am responsive to your concerns. I hear you. Feel free to contact me at any time. But above all, I do listen to you. Thank you very much for your time. Drive safely home. Have a good evening.
Councilwoman Dunlap.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad that it was announced earlier, actually at the beginning of the meeting, that the special meeting tomorrow night was being canceled. Because I always have a great concern when we call a special meeting and yet members of this body don't even have a report at all which shows what we're going to be voting on. So even though it was just was 24 hours in advance, there was still no staff report generated, and it was that meeting was canceled. That was in the best interest of the community, and Mayor, I appreciate that call being made. I would like to invite everyone to a town hall meeting for District 2 and anyone in the city who would like to come. It's going to be Thursday, January 31st, just after tomorrow, at 7 p.m., the first floor community room. We're going to be discussing the Chief of Police selection, an update on the Senior Center, and update on the Hollywood Park Tomorrow development and the casino, which I think many of you may know is under new management, or going to be, is in a transition. The Madison Square Garden project, which is at the Forum. And we're going to discuss once again the abandoned gas station, La Cienega, Fairview, and La Tijera. We spoke about that project at the last town hall meeting. I think most of you know the history of that project. It's private-owned property. It's not owned by the city. It was never in a redevelopment project area, and the city's hands have been tied with regard to what can be done, period. When there was another tenant in there, they were willing to spend some money to tear everything down and put in a very small little parking lot, which they would have had a grassy knoll around the perimeter, so if you drove by on La Tijera or La Cienega, it would have looked like a park, best case scenario, but then the owner refused to sign off on it. He refused. So once again, it's privately owned property. So we're going to talk about it again. And so I'd like to, those of you interested in that or any of these other topics, to come to the meeting. Once again, it's Thursday night, day after tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And actually, Mr. Fields, if you could have someone who could speak briefly on the senior center, I would greatly appreciate it. Just get a little update with regard to funding and what's holding the funding up and where we are with regard to a design process and the senior committee. I would appreciate that. In conclusion, I would just like to remind everyone of the announcement that was made with regard to our county supervisor, Mark Ridley Thomas's efforts to count the homeless in the city of Inglewood. Now, when you count the homeless, it's a census, and it brings money into this city to serve these individuals. We're going to spend the money to serve them anyway, but if we don't count them, we're not going to get the extra money, so it really is important. And as was announced, it's at 8 o'clock here at City Hall till midnight. And you may think that's a pretty odd time for a committee to get together, but that's when the homeless can be tracked down and located and counted. So if you have the energy to do that, it's a team effort. Our police will be there to escort you. Everything will be laid out. It will be very well organized. So if you'd like to come and assist with this county project, here to benefit the city of Inglewood, be here tomorrow night from 8 o'clock until We'll meet here at 8 o'clock for all of your directions, and it lasts until midnight. Thank you very much. And thank you for all of you who came this evening.
Councilman Franklin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thanks to those that came out this evening. And I'm hearing a lot of comments with reference to how we conduct ourselves on the dais, but also be mindful how you conduct yourself on the podium, because it's the community and this council trying to work together on bringing in development to help stimulate the economy, and it all starts with you as well. I also want to identify that this past weekend, the District 4, City of Inglewood District 4 had a town hall meeting, and the theme was progress in the making for the City of Inglewood. And I personally want to thank the speakers that was there. We had the Madam City Clerk, Yvonne Horton, who came and spoke to us about items that's going to be on the ballot. We had our distinguished Mayor James Butts, who talked to us regarding progress in the city and our future and where we're going. We had the city budget update with our city manager, Artie Fields. Thank you very much. And then we also had the District 4 capital improvement projects by our Public Works Director, Louis Atwell, who talked about current things in the makings and things that are going to go on in the future within this year's budget and the following year's budget. And then we dealt with the physical health of the city, which was by our Chief Financial Officer, David Esparza. If you need to know where we're going to go, what better way to make sure we have our Chief Financial Officer there and all these others that I have mentioned before you. And then also, we dealt with specific community issues that was generated regarding the waste hauling services. So we had the Consolidated Services review and update by Ms. Dawn Harris, who's the Municipal Relationship Manager. And so we was able to address specific concerns regarding waste hauling, bulk pickup, being able to have a contact to a live person with that their offices is down in the city of Inglewood. And so it was a warm and fuzzy feeling, but at the same time, they had genuine concerns regarding the pickups, and those items were addressed as well. And then we concluded the meeting by having the Los Angeles County Fire Department, where we had Captain Brian Jordan was there, and not only did he talk about home safety tips, he also made sure everyone in the audience received a free smoke alarm, so that way they could put them in their home, show them how they needed to be at home, placed in their home. And we also provided valuable information in flyers and pamphlets regarding the city and things surrounding the city. So it was a great experience, and I thank everyone for coming. And then finally, I want to reach out to the Social Justice Learning Institute, because we were at Morningside High, and we passed out nearly 2,000 fruit trees to the residents throughout our community to say that we want to, not only do we want oxygen in our community, but we want neighbor to be able to share with neighbor their product of their labor, and that's the fruit that they would bear. God bless you all, and good night.
Just a couple of things. I wanted to address the issue of the special meeting that was going to be held last night that was canceled. When we hold a special meeting, there's usually a special purpose, and in this instance, we can't talk about the nuts and bolts of it because it's a negotiations item. But the intent was to attempt to get a project on track so that jobs could be on track the first week in February related to the Madison Square Garden project. And that is the purpose. There's no attempt to lack transparency or to mislead. It's to do something good for the community. But a good point was raised in the closed session, and so we canceled it so that we could take do another process. As it relates to the successor agency, Mr. Matthew had a great comment about random audits of the check register, which I think is worth looking into. But I have to tell him that we never had $1 billion to be $1 billion in debt. We never had $1 billion. Now, as it relates to the successor agency, yes, there's a significant amount of bond proceeds, bonds that have not yet been spent, and those are slated to be used for Century Reconstruction, for the Senior Center. But what the State Department of Finance has done to make sure, as we reconcile all the assets of the redevelopment agency, to make sure there is money to collect in the event that they feel we owe more than we feel we've reconciled for, then they freeze those funds until we do our reconciliation. So that's what's going on, and we're not bankrupt by any stretch of the imagination, and we don't owe anybody $1 billion. That's just untrue, and I had to tell you that. And as it relates to, people's speech, I spent my public life fighting to uphold the Constitution. Now, Mrs. Brown continually says that I was found guilty of violating Miranda. Well, actually, there was a lawsuit against some detectives that worked for me that did something called questioning outside Miranda. And because I was the chief, I was sued. And the ruling in that case was overturned at some point, but you never hear that. But the point was I didn't violate anybody's Miranda rights. I'm ashamed I have to address it, but no, I never did. The chief, whenever your officers get sued, the chief gets sued. So we just really, we need to work. We're getting a little better, but we need to work at just being civil people, getting our points of view across. I'll fight to the death for you to do it, but I also will make sure that we have order in these meetings and that, we conduct a business meeting. We just don't have to be as excited as some of us are. All right, we're adjourned.